Hey guys, it's got pretty much a lot to talk about since my last video that was posted. It's been quite a while. I'm continuing this series, this part 3 of why India sucks. We have a bunch of topics to discuss. I have so many points written down before me. Elaborate each point in more detail as I go along. What contents do I have this time? Well, starting off, I guess I'd like to explain something regarding the comment section in my channel. I had to delete and put a stop to the comment section to prevent people from commenting because there has been a lot of abusive comments have been coming up, and apparently a lot of people don't get the facts. They're too ignorant and too dumb that the truth is too heavy for them. So they'd rather believe pleasant and short-term temporary lies that this country is good enough for them, and they'd rather accuse me, abuse my channel to spread their lies. So I had to get rid of the comment section, and I'm sorry, but it's something I had to do, unfortunately. Just wanted to let you know about that. This video is going to be a little long, and just so you know, if I keep looking to the side, just remember that I got a lot of points to cover, so I need to look over and remind myself on what topics I need to be talking about each time. So, the obvious elephant in the room. The Statue of Unity. Unity in diversity. That's what our country stands for. I think it's more like representing the unity of Hindi and Hinduism. Very questionable, because India is a land where there is a lot of diverse languages, religions, and culture, race. So why is it specifically should be united under one language, or rather one religion? I'm going to address the religion and the language eventually, but let me talk about this statue that so-called represents our unity. Do you honestly think that spending close to 3,000 crores on building this statue will solve all our problems? I don't think so. And also, neither will building a Ram temple solve these issues. How does renaming cities like Ahmedabad into whatever name it's going to be called, how do renaming cities and building statues or temples going to solve our problems? I'd really like to know that. And also, surprisingly, the funny thing is, it was completed in time. It hasn't been postponed or delayed or anything of the sort when it came to a statue. But whereas most of the infrastructure projects are being postponed, so it's quite surprising to find that the Statue of Unity was built in such a short duration without much delays at all. So it's really disappointing to know that the government tries to emphasize on building a statue of whom we've never heard about in our history books. If it was Mahatma Gandhi, yes, I would agree. But Sardar Patel, I mean, who is he? Who the heck is he? And what's so significant about him? Doesn't matter. There's no point in building such a statue about him and spending so much money. I mean, if it was a small statue, yeah, I agree. Building such a large statue, it's practically useless. And it's a waste of our government expense. It's not like our country is so wealthy that we have more than enough money to spend for such a large statue. I think the government should put the money to better use. So, before I move on, I'd like to address that a lot of the points are controversial. Of course, a lot of it would be ranting with information, with valid facts. This time I'll be posting a lot of the information on the screen. I'll make sure to edit it and post it so that you don't have to, I save you the trouble of googling it up for yourself. If you want to disagree with some of my points that I've mentioned, make sure that you are not a student or you're not rich. Because all the points and facts that I'm stating here are for the people who are working, who are in the working class, and who are in the middle class or lower class, obviously. but not in those who are on the upper class, or the those who are financially doing well for themselves. Or neither is it for the students who just talk a lot but aren't practically ignorant about the whole scenario that's going on. I mean, yes, they do understand certain things, but they don't feel the impact unless they face it for themselves. So, students, I don't care what you think about it, you better shut your mouth until you start working for yourself. And unless you make a living for yourself, don't even bother trying to argue with me. I mean, because if you make a living for yourself, and if you're living away from your parents, and if you live by yourself, then I agree, you're successful. You have enough money, you're financially well versed to argue with me that you proved a point that you're successful in India, so you find India is okay for you, that you can make a living for yourself without too many complications. So moving on, I'm going to point out few issues that have been trending around recently. First of all, this T-Series channel, otherwise known as this Bollywood bullcrap. Let me tell you guys, Bollywood is the most unimaginative, uncreative content that I've ever seen. And I'm not trying to generalize and put all the movies together. Of course, there are certain good movies, but for the most part, I would say 90 to 95% of them are just crap. Okay? Now, as hurting as that might be, that's the truth. I'm sorry. When you're hyping those bullcrap in a YouTube channel and be having more subscribers than PewDiePie, just keep in mind that most of those subscribers are scams. Like, in other words, they are fake subscribers. Because if you look at the number of views that they get per day, or per video, for as opposed to PewDiePie, who is also on a similar level, he gets far more views per video for every subscriber that he gets. So it's a views versus subscriber count. So how is it that T-Series somehow manages to increase its subscribers while maintaining a very low view count as opposed to PewDiePie? So this is very suspicious. Now, and there's been a lot of proof. A lot of people have checked out the YouTube algorithm, and from the given details, they have proved that T-Series is a scam. And of course, most of Indians try to scam their way to the top. And I've seen a lot over it, and I've seen a lot of it in many places. So I would say, considering all the facts, and I should be sure to put up the images and the some of the details and the information that I've collected on the screen somewhere around here, so that you can see it for yourself. That yes, T-Series is a scam, and if you think it's really good and if they're worthy of all the subscribers and views, well, I guess you're crap too. I'm sorry, but that's just my brutal truth. Because if you like shit, then maybe you're shit as well. So I feel there's not much good content to follow up there, and that too, it's focusing only on one country. I mean, why can't they produce much more content that approach a much larger audience? It's useless. T-Series is a scam, and whoever is a fan of it should think twice and shouldn't fall for such scams. Don't be stupid, guys. The other point, of course, I've mentioned this before. Roads are being dug up. You find stray dogs and cows shitting all over the place. Now, when you call yourself a developing country, I'm not sure if any of you have traveled to China or Mexico or South Africa, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, and the countries that I've just mentioned right now, they're far more clean and hygienic than the cities and many of the places I've found in India. When India claims to be a developing country, it's really hard for me to believe. I mean, it's hard for me to believe it's a developing country, let alone try to compare it with China. Because China is like at least 25 to 30 years ahead of India by all factors. So I would say India is still an underdeveloped country, and it's only been getting worse with each year, and haven't been progressing in any positive way. I mean, there has been a few positive changes, but the negative consequences that has resulted from the growth has been so big that it has overshadowed most of the positive growth. India fails at a lot of basic fundamental things to be achieved in order to be called a developing country in the first place. Now, let me ask you this, for all of you idiotic, ignorant, stubborn fans of India, of the nation of India, who think India is truly growing. Oh, I love India. India is so great. Let me ask you address these four questions. For what reason do you love it? For what reason do you love this nation? Or do you love it because of your friends and family? Because if you truly love it because of your friends and family, then that doesn't count. Because obviously, any person from any country would love their friends and family. That's totally biased. That's an emotional statement. So nobody would deny loving their friends and family, right? So that doesn't mean you have to. That doesn't mean the country is great by default. So why do you love the nation? Because socioeconomically speaking, it sucks. It sucks hard. It's very difficult to survive in India. I've been to Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka is, even though there's been a lot of war in Sri Lanka, it's a far better country than India will ever be. It's a neighboring country. It's much more smaller and it's way better than India. So, why do you love it? Think about it. Friends and family don't count. What reasons do you love the country for? Let me ask you another question. Supposing you get an opportunity to move abroad, anywhere, USA, UK, or Australia, or Canada, or anywhere, any better developed country. Supposing you get an opportunity to study there or work there, would you leave India and go move there if you were given the opportunity? If you say yes, then you're a hypocrite. If you still love India and if you take up that opportunity, you're a hypocrite, okay? And you have no rights to support India as a nation. But if you say no, then yeah, you have every right to support India. I agree. You're making the sacrifice, you make sure you stay and support the nation. I have no issue with it. So ask yourself that question. Will you leave India for a better opportunity? Up to the next question. Ask yourself this question. Do you use Western products? Do you use any Western product, like any as simple as Western clothing, Western food? Do you use Western cosmetics? Any other Western products? Now, if you use those products, let me tell you that you are indirectly promoting, or indirectly you're dependent on certain items that are not Indian, that aren't Indian by nature. So, if you're truly an Indian, you should be supporting the Indian culture, the Indian tradition, and the Indian practices, and the Indian products. Be Indian by Indian. That was what was stated for many decades until 1992, I guess, when the economy opened up. So you need to stick to Indian food, Indian products, and Indian clothes if you truly believe and love India and believe in being an Indian. Now, let me ask you this final question. If you truly believe that India is getting better, let's say India is getting better. Yes, we all agree that India is good. If you truly believe that India is getting better each year, ask yourself this question. Why is the immigration rate has been increasing rather than declining each year? It's only common sense. If the nation is truly getting better, shouldn't be more and more people stay back in the nation? Why are people leaving? Why the immigration rate is accelerated rather than decline over the years? And why does it keep increasing each year? Maybe it is getting worse, and just people don't have the balls to talk about it and admit it. I know I do, but I guess not many people are honest with themselves. Who knows? Ask yourself that. Now, moving on to the real points as to why India sucks. Guys, let me tell you this. India was a very, very agriculture rich nation. We used to export a lot of agriculture products. Now, agriculture is the worst industry right now in this present scenario. We are the worst in agriculture. We have literally every other. We are doing quite okay. I wouldn't say we are the best, but we're quite in a okay situation. We somehow can pull through and manage in several other sectors, but agriculture is right now suffering, and I don't have to speak of it. You can see the news. A lot of farmers are committing suicide, and somehow the government fails at solving this issue. I'm not saying that the farmers have not been taken care of. I agree. The government has taken certain situations, but what are you doing for agriculture? Not just the farmers, but how are you going to grow the agriculture sector? How are you going to improve it? So you might be asking me, well, Adrian, how are we going to improve it? You say always it's easy to complain. How do you improve it? Well, bring some foreign techniques, bring some new agriculture methods or machines that can improve the overall efficiency of agriculture sector. Are all countries doing bad in agriculture? Find out how other countries manage it and they accomplish it and start implementing it in our nation. Why is it so hard? I don't understand it. It's not as if all the nations in the world are suffering this in the same agriculture sector, right? So some nations are doing really well. Many different nations are doing well in agriculture. Israel, with such a small nation, is doing well in agriculture. They're one of the peak in agriculture research. So why can't we learn from them? I don't get it. Because no matter, let's say you improve every other sector, we are good at any other segment and any other industry. 15 or 20 years down the road, if you don't have food to eat, and what good is it? If you have all the money in the world but you don't have food and or water for the sake, even water is getting scarce by the day. Since our population is growing, our country is getting hotter and hotter each year due to global warming reasons, and at the same time the availability of water is declining since we cut off all the trees. So how do you think are we gonna survive without proper food and water if we just grow and develop all the other sectors? I don't know. Looks like the government hasn't really thought about it. The most important criteria, the most important point, I'd say, which I have been a huge critic of, the education system. The education is useless. Is absolutely useless. It's crap. It's outdated. We need a change, and we need it now more than ever. You know why? Because all the people, everyone depends on good education so that they can get a good job. Listen, if you don't, your whole life depends on the first 20 to 25 years of what you're doing. So if you mess up in any of those years, that's gonna affect you a great deal. So those 25 years of 20 to 25 years are really crucial in your life. So you need to make sure that you get the best education so that you get a good job. Now, if you're gonna get such a irrelevant, outdated, pathetic education system that India currently now has, obviously you're not gonna get employed in anywhere because it's not practical, it's not valid. So why in the hell would you even study that? And let alone pay so much money for it. So we gotta rethink about education system. First of all, I would recommend there are English medium schools and colleges, alright, in the cities. So if a person is moving, has just finished 12th standard and is going to join an English college, why don't we have an basic English medium test, an English test, grammar test, to test the students on how well they speak English. And let's say if they get above 50%, they get into the college. If they don't, they get to go to any other medium, the local medium, or they get to try again, perhaps for another second or third time. Because I've noticed a lot of this, many times, that a lot of the local people who hardly speak English get into these colleges and they make a mess of it. something that it needs to be respected. If it's an English medium, look, I have utmost respect for all the languages. I'm not trying to be biased here, but if it's an English medium school or college, then it should be English medium. Like, at least most of the students should be fluent in English, right? If not, then, I mean, if you feel you're only comfortable with your local language, such as Hindi or any other language, just go and join your local language medium school or college, or any other medium that the college or school, whichever is out there. But if it's English, hey, you gotta read, write, and talk English at least to a certain level. I feel they could filter out a lot of people by doing that, and that way maintain a good English speaking crowd and the good quality education that can be maintained in the system. Coming out to the future, India is going to really have a hard time in the future. Many predict that China is going to have a hard time because of its aging population, and since they've controlled population a lot, no way. India is going to have a hard time. You know why? Because the development of artificial intelligence. Now, AI and automation has been growing a lot these past few years. So, India having a large young population, obviously, and most of them are going to be unemployed in the future. So, unemployment and underemployment is going to have a major factor. And when you add artificial intelligence to the equation, it's going to get worse. A lot of people are going to be jobless. And I have no idea how the government is going to solve that issue. Casteism. Casteism, such a controversial topic. Casteism shouldn't exist and should totally be eliminated. Anyone who supports casteism, man, just go end your life, okay? I'm not even going to try explaining to you as to why it's wrong. So just go and end your life. Casteism should be gone, both in employment and education sectors. That's it. On to, yes, another thing, population. India has such a huge population, as I said. So why isn't there any law to restrict the growth of population? Why isn't there a law by now, a law stating that having more than 2 kids per family, having more than 2 kids per family will take away a lot of your privileges and benefits in this social or economic circle. For example, you're having 3 kids, then all 3 kids are getting admitted in some school. Since your percentage of fees or for the 3rd kid will be much higher, let's say probably 20 or 25% higher. So because it's kind of like a disadvantage to have a 3rd kid. So why isn't there a law to control population right now? China has done excellently well. They had a one-child policy. Now I'm not even going as far as saying we must have a one-child policy, because I agree. Because sometimes, let's say if you have a child, and that child grows up big, and if he or she passes away, the parents are left childless. They can't bear another child. So I'd rather go as far as having at least 2 kids is fine. But more than that, the government should put a law to discourage families from having more than 2 children. I'm surprised that government hasn't taken any steps in that. The demonetization was a big failure. It was a big flop. And regarding the goods and service tax, yes, it was useful to a certain extent. But remember, guys, when you file goods and services tax, ask any businessman, when you're filing goods and service tax every month, it's a huge headache and it's a huge expense for the business. If it's once in 6 months or once in a year, filing tax returns, no problem. I used to run a business, and I know and I've consulted with a lot of people, a lot of accountants, and filing the tax returns every month is such a big headache. Even if you have nothing to file, if you have no no accounts to show, you still gotta file a zero returns tax file. And I mean, that's crazy. That's bullshit. It's not necessary. Okay. I understand that Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu had banned plastic. Moving on to the plastic issue. It's good. It was a good decision, but again, it was very abrupt and such a sudden move. See, I understand it was a good move. It was done with good intent, but imagine this: a government can easily sign the bill. Say like 1 or 2 days. It hardly takes a day to sign the bill, right? You just sign it and say that plastic is bad, so we're banning it first day. It's easy. That's the easy part. Well, what are you going to do when you suddenly ban plastic? What about all the businesses that have been using plastic until now? What about where are they going to find an alternative? Have you subsidized any other product or raw material that they're going to use to make plastic bags and plastic containers that they're going to use? Are they going to find something that can temporarily, at least not maybe not in the long run, they can find an alternative obviously, but temporarily manage to find an alternative that is not too expensive? I'm not sure why the government hasn't thought of that, because right now, there is a huge order. I've been to a lot of restaurants, chain restaurants, and these restaurants have given huge orders to China, and a lot of paper bags are being imported from China. So looks like all the money is going to China. I mean, the China is getting hugely benefited due to this, due to our banning. Let's say the government had thought a little about this and they had installed a plant, or with of course with connection to some private enterprise, and started manufacturing paper or jute alternatives, any alternatives in a large scale mode, and supplied to these private companies, private restaurants. We wouldn't have to depend on China and paying such huge amount to China to get these alternative utilities, right? I mean, why do you have to depend on another nation and let another nation benefit from banning this? Why hadn't the government thought about this? This is just too silly. This goes to show how stupid our nation's leaders are the leaders of a nation are. And let me just state, if you think India has such a rich culture, ask yourself this. If India has such a rich culture and such a rich tradition that you're always proud about, what about the practice of sati? Have you ever heard of it? The practice of sati is that it was very famous in India back a lot of years back, and for many centuries, that if her husband dies, they burn the corpse, and the wife should jump into it as well. Now, was it a really good and positive tradition? Of course not. It's bullshit. So, it's not that good to generalize by saying that India was so good until the British came and spoiled everything. Let me talk about a little more. In fact, let me expand about that a little more. When the British came to India, they modernized a lot of things. Now, let me ask you this. If Indians were really smart and really talented and they were really in tune with nature and had their own benefits, now, why couldn't, now obviously speaking, even back then, keep in mind that Indian population was much larger, way more, uh, we had way more people living in India than the entirety of Britain, okay? We had a large population even back then. So if we wanted to overthrow the British, we all just had to stand united. Now I don't want to know why all those centuries that Indians couldn't uh, find it find it in them to put up a united front against the British to win freedom. Why did it take so long? I mean, a bunch of peasants stood up to the British and got freedom in such a big land, United States. They got freedom pretty easily and much quicker. So why did India take so long? I don't understand. Maybe we're a bunch of idiots. They were, maybe. So you can't claim that Indians were really smart and we suffered a lot due to just purely to the British. If Let me tell you this: the real reason why the British left, or at least 50%. Let me give you the benefit of the doubt. At least 50% or the half of the reason why British left it wasn't truly or wholly because we put up a non-violence stand against them. It was because they suffered great disasters and great losses back in their motherland when the World War II was over. After the World War II, they suffered huge losses and they suffered a lot of financial expenses. They had to bear a lot of financial expenses back at home when Germany attacked them several times. So they had to reconstruct and rebuild their motherland from scratch. So that's why they decided to, you know, just let go of the colonies because they couldn't manage them anymore. They didn't have the proper finances and the manpower to do it. So that's half the reason. I would say major reason, but let's be fair. So that's half the reason why we got freedom. Yeah, and this is another point that I mentioned before. India keeps slipping down in the World Happiness Index. So if it's truly getting better, why is the happiness among the people in India getting worse and worse each year? It should be getting better, right? Still doesn't make sense. When it comes to crime, rapists and murderers, if they've been proved guilty, they must be hanged. Whoever it is, I don't care. Rapists and murderers should be hanged at all costs. That's why the Chinese residents fear the law. They respect the law, and the people stand in line and they obey it. Because when it comes to crime, guys, the laws should be upheld strict. I mean, I understand there are several other social issues or any other issues can be compromised, but when it's crime, especially major crimes, the laws must be upheld in such a strict fashion. Only then will the people fear and not commit crimes. And of course, Roy Machido, I'm not sure if you are aware, but he's an Indian who stayed in Dubai, I guess, and he's now in Thailand. He made an excellent video a year back or two, a long back, where he describes the as to why the Indian mentality sucks, the typical Indian mentality. And yeah, this is just a small video. I'll put a link to his video in the description. He gives a lot of factors as to why the typical Indian mentality sucks. He's an amazing content maker. I follow many of his videos, so it's good. If you haven't checked him out, please do check out his channel and subscribe to him. I agree with most of what he has to say because he makes a lot of common sense. And even he dislikes India. He has visited India and he's been here a couple of times, and he typically hates the Indian mentality, and so do I. And that's why I'm in the middle of immigration, and I hope to move to a better country soon enough. Again, coming to sports, there hasn't been much great development in sports. I don't know why India hasn't promoted its young people to diversify themselves and not just become an engineer, doctor, or manager, and rather be even a sports person who can pursue and survive and make a decent living by immersing themselves and developing their athletic sides. I don't know why India has failed at doing that, because if India truly respected sports, at least the basic ones like cricket and chess, which our Indian citizens have represented on an international level, why isn't there chess and cricket in almost every school or college in India? Why isn't it there so that people can promote such sports and make a living of them? I have no idea. Now coming on to this, I have stay with me. I just have points left, just 3 or 4. Regarding this FDI, foreign direct investment rate, BJP recently have not recently, but since they came into power, they had turned it into 100% FDI investment. That is, the foreign companies are allowed to invest 100% of the capital and start companies and start make investments without much hindrance. So let me tell you the issue of this. If you start doing that, if you let foreign companies invest 100% of all their money and capital, and just let them do whatever they wish they can, let me tell you what's going to happen. And it's already happening, by the way. All the local manufacturers, local companies, that is the Indian industries are going to die out. They're going to get bought or go into bankruptcy since they can't outplay and they can't survive in the competition against foreign companies, foreign MNCs. So they're going to die out pretty soon. All right. So they're definitely going to die out in a few years, and it's already started. I know a lot of companies that have been shut down. So, and the worst thing is, you might ask me why is that a bad idea? Well, the reason is, when those companies shut down and when those MNCs take over those bigger companies and they spread their influence, most of the the MNCs are here for profit, right? Ultimately, all businesses and all companies are here for making a profit. So when those companies invest all their capital and resources in India, on a short term basis, it is good. It is good. All those investment it does pay off in a certain level. But on a long term basis, most of the money will be leaving India. Most of them, because we are consuming when you consume those foreign products and services, a lot of those money, crores of money, in fact, will be leaving India, because they'll be utilizing because that will be moving to the head office or wherever the MNC wants to shift that money, because it's their money, it's their profit, so they can take a large portion of that. A large portion of the amount, the money that the company makes will be moving out. But let's say if an Indian company was here, Indian-based company or Indian industry, the money would be spent here because this is the headquarters. So it's not gonna go out. The money will be reshuffled and recycled here. But if it's if it's a big foreign company, then most of the money will be leaving India. So India is at a loss here. That's another factor to look out. And how do you solve this? So many people might ask me, how do you solve this? Because if you don't let FDI, their foreign direct investment to 100%, and let the Indian companies have at least a say in that, it results to a lot of stagnation, a lot of problems, and the local companies are not efficient enough as the foreign companies. I agree to the arguments on both sides. So leaving too much of FDI, restricting them too much isn't going to do well. But I have a solution, a third perspective on this. Let's say around 45 to 47.5% is given to both the Indian company, a tie-up between the Indian company and the foreign company that they are established to work together. Companies like Maruti Suzuki. Maruti is an Indian company tied up with Suzuki, which is a Japanese company. So what I'm trying to say is that these major companies have a tie-up with some local Indian company, and they can be given 45 to 47.5% of share between those two companies, whereas and a 5% or 5 to 10% of the remaining share can be owned by some government or government appointed council, or a third body of council, which is in direct control by the government, so that any major decision that is the MNC is going to take, because all the major decisions that such a big company takes, it's going to influence the society in one way or another, right? So any major decision can be backed or not backed by the government directly. So preventing, that is, the percentage is to prevent the majority, because obviously anyone who has the 51% or more has control in whatever decisions they're going to make. So to prevent both sides, the Indian and the foreign company, from enforcing and exploiting the society and their control, the government can establish a common body that can hold at least 5 to 10% of the share in all these major tie-ups, and they can choose to side whichever decision seems to be the best for the nation. So that's a really good third option that people can consider. Now, just have two more points left. Recently, a funny thing happened. Train 18, which was claimed to be the fastest train that ever built by India, near Delhi, in Delhi, I think 165 to 175 kilometers per hour, so something. Price itself in going 165 to 175 kilometers per hour. Oh, such a big thing, such a fastest train in India. And apparently during the first day of launch, it broke down, and it was a failure during the first day. So they had to bring it back to the shed and rework a lot of things. The funny fact here is that India is a land with abundant engineers, and still this project has failed. I guess government has not properly utilized those many engineers, and the first day of launch, just a train traveling at 165 to 175 kilometers has failed. Now, the funny factor here is that it's not that it just failed. It's bloody damn slow to compare to many other trains in the world. Now, let me have to give you a good example. I'll just post the picture here and the kilometer per hour here. But China has been successfully running a train for more than 400 kilometers per hour for many years. It's been successfully running. That's the fastest train in China. More than 400 kilometers per hour. And here our fastest train is 165 to 175 kilometers per hour, and it breaks down during the first day. What the fuck? I am terribly disappointed in our government. Our government has failed in every possible way. And not just that, regarding this Bogibeel Bridge, which was inaugurated last year, around the end of last year, let me give you the facts around this, and I'll make sure to post some of the pictures on the screen so that you can see the facts for yourself. This Bogibeel Bridge was initiated in around 2004 to 6, I believe, somewhere around that. I'll make sure to post the details. But I was reading it, and it was around that time it started, and it was completed only successfully by last year. Imagine the scale it took to accomplish such a project. But you might be wondering, it's such a big project, and BJP wasn't active for many of those years since Congress was ruling. Hey, there's no excuse, all right? When the government is still a government, if you start a project, you gotta finish it. There's no excuses in between, because people are gonna suffer. And it's not the government that suffers; it's the people that are gonna suffer when you postpone or delay such projects. Of course, even the bullet train project has been delayed and postponed now due to encroachment on farmers' land recently. So the bullet train project has been postponed, by the way. Anyway, coming back to this Bogibeel project, the funny fact since it was hyped in media by Narendra Modi and so many people, the funny fact is the estimated cost of the project initially was 17 billion rupees. So I agree, certain costs. It's just an estimation, and some projects can go even a little bit higher, and there might be unexpected expenses and it can go higher. Now, by the end of last year, the expenses were 50 billion rupees. 50 billion, 50. From 17 billion, it jumped all the way to 50 billion rupees. The project that was supposed to be completed much earlier took so long, and it was completed only last year. It took close to 17 years or something, and it has costed such a big difference, 17 to 50 billion. Now you might try to justify this. Now let me point you out to another similar project in the same region, over water. Okay, this was a project that was built for, I guess, 5,000 meters, right? 5 kilometers. So over water. So this wasn't the largest bridge, but it was one of the largest bridge. Let me point you out to the largest bridge ever built in India. It was again a northeast project built over water. It was 9,000 meters, which is 9 kilometers. 9 kilometers was the largest bridge ever built in India. And do you know how long it took to build that bridge? The project started around 2011 and it got completed in 2017, but it was hardly ever promoted or publicly shown in the media that success of the project was made. You know why? Because it was a government private funded project. The private had a major play in the project, so they took up the project in well, and for some reason or whatsoever, the government hadn't shown a great deal of importance to when it came to completing the project. That was the largest project, and do you know how much it cost? It cost 10 billion rupees, just 10 billion rupees. Now, assuming even if there were additional expenses, let's say we give them an elaborate lump sum amount of 15 billion. Let's say, okay, any other additional expense. It was the largest bridge. It took 7 years, and let's say the facts say 10 billion, but I say let's say it took 15 billion. Let's say 15 billion. So you're telling me that the largest bridge in kilometers was built over water, was finished in 7 years, and took only somewhere around 10 to 15 billion rupees, whereas another project, that is Bogibeel Bridge, took such a long time, took 50 billion rupees, and wasn't even the longest. I mean, it was barely half. So I don't get the picture here. Definitely there's something up. I'm sure that a lot of ministers had swindled most of the money in between. I'm sure a lot of the money would have been stolen or somewhere diverted into the pockets of ministers. So I believe there's a huge scam here that the court needs to look into. Now, of course, this is just a tiny fraction of what I've stated. I still haven't gone through the multiple rape cases that India has done, and of course, Americans talk about abortion as if it's good, whether good or bad. Indians come out abortion every few minutes, because all over India, just probably in a minute or two, a female child is getting aborted. Having a female child is still a major negative factor in many families. It's being looked down upon, and this is what Indian historical culture or tradition is supposed to be, and supposed to be proud of. We should supposed to be proud of such a bullshit culture where they abort the female child every few minutes. I'm surprised. Like, what? So how are we going to manage the sex ratio in the future? We're going to have a whole lot of horny male bastards who can't find appropriate brides when they reach a young age. So I don't know what the government is going to do. Probably market some sex robots. I don't know. But coming up to drawing up to the conclusion. So why is India promoted in media? There's been a lot of positive propaganda. Even the Investor Corp meet in CTC. So why is India promoted in the limelight, and why is BJP promoting this country, this shithole of a country? The real reason is so that the country can survive. Of course, we all want the country to survive, but the real reason is so that the businesses can sustain themselves. The businesses can come and make money off of here. You see, in the Western countries, most of all the businesses are saturated. Saturated in the sense that there's not much to be produced or manufactured anymore. So they got to find a new market, a new country where they can sell their goods and services. So they come to India where they can sell their new goods and products and services and whatnot. So since most of their home countries are saturated, they come to a new market like India, where it's still young and there's a lot of population, so there's a lot of potential for selling your products. So obviously, even though there are countries much better than India, such as Sri Lanka, South Africa, Brazil, Mexico, and so many other nations, Malaysia, but even though those are developing countries that are far better, even Egypt, I've been to Egypt and Egypt was very better. So even though those countries are much better, their population is very less. So they're not going to sell a whole lot of products and make a lot of money by moving into those markets. So India is a far more better market because for one reason there's a huge population, and of course their government is stupid, so they're going to do anything to let those companies come and just rob all our money and sell us some bullshit or something and just leave. So that's the whole reason that media hypes or portrays India in a positive limelight. Whereas apart from all the advertising bullshit and all the positive propaganda, India is going to die. If you want my honest opinion, yeah, you'll see the effects eventually, but India is going down. India is definitely getting worse, and it's not going to get better. That's the sad truth. As hard as it is, in possibly another 5 to 10 years, it's going to get worse, and the nation might even collapse. It might come to a point of total destruction, internal chaos. And so, how do we stop this? You might be thinking, okay, with all these problems in mind, how do we put a stop to this from happening? How do we prevent such things? Well, there is no indirect or safe way to do this. The only way is that we need a revolution. We need a revolution by all our young people out here. We need a huge raid or revolution against who? Against the enemies who have been rotting and stealing, who have been rotting our lives, who has been stealing from us for decades, and who don't give a shit about us. We need to raid those bullshit bastards who are living in such mansions. You know what I'm talking about. Those ministers, our own ministers, they are our enemies. We need to raid them by force. We need to stand up and we need a big revolution. We need to stand together, united, and we don't need to give a fuck about them. They're scared about us. If we all stand together, they're nothing. So we need a huge revolution, and we need to bring a change by force, because most of the young people leave India because their intellect is being neglected. Of course, you hear of brain drain. Why do you think brain drain is happening? Because of all the reservation system in the education and employment facilities. So we need a huge revolution, guys, and we need it soon. We must stand together, all the young people. We need to raid these ministers, these bastards. I wouldn't even call them as human beings, they're worse than animals. So I respect animals way more than these lunatic buffoons. Like, I imagine the worst thing possible in the world and multiply that into 10 times. We gotta get rid of them. So we need a huge revolution and raid these mansions and these houses, and we need to destroy their lives and take what we can and bring a big change by force. And whatever it takes to achieve that, we need to bring a revolution and put a standstill, put a stop to all this nonsense, and bring actual change and a huge revolution to this nation. Only then can the country improve. So even when the Soviet Union broke down, there was a huge revolution, and revolution has happened in the history into many countries, and that's what shaped the country to what they are today. So we need a revolution in India, and I believe all the young Indians should stand together, united. And I hope this video inspires and touches all of you there. Again, I'm not trying to discourage you or demotivate you. I'm just trying to speak on behalf of the nation and create an awareness ultimately, and so that all our brothers and sisters can stand together and overthrow these dogs who think they can just ruin our lives and lead our nation to the ground. So it's time we stood up and brought a huge change and destroy this government, and both the Congress and the BJP, and bring a new establishment led by young minds, develop India for the better, and make India a prosperous nation in the future. That's the ultimate goal. So we got to destroy. It's not that Indians don't have potential. Indians are one of the smartest people in the world. But man, we got to destroy our government. We got to bring down the stupid national government, so that we can establish something that is way better, that should have been established years ago. So it's time we stop falling for their lies and brainwashing bullcrap, and start giving a shit about us, and start fighting ourselves. We are fighting for ourselves, and not just for ourselves but our future generations. So we need to bring a change on a major scale. So it's time that we start acting now, and we take time for change. It's time we take a brave action by force and do whatever is necessary to bring that change, including and overthrowing this government that has caused such misfortune upon our lives and our families. And with that, I conclude. The rest all is up to you. Just think about this and just talk to your friends. Share this video. Give this a thumbs up. And we can't run away from the truth for too long. We can just ignore it, push it aside. But eventually, ultimately, when the pain grows big, we gotta discuss it and solve it. So the only way here is by a huge revolution, a mass revolution. And that's how we're gonna solve this nation of such hypocritical leaders, man. And I hope we do it. Thank you.